background is clinical, it's not sales. I got into sales after being a hygienist. Started working with digital imaging in 1996. There's not a product on the market I haven't worked on or trained with. So if you have questions about how this compares to other companies, feel free to ask. I'm going to go through, a little bit about the Suni story. Suni's been around for years. A lot of people are not aware of that, and they think it's a fairly new. I need to be louder, or I need to stand.
No, you talk as loud as you can.
You
So
stand next to the.
You definitely don't want to say that.
Let me turn up my hearing.
Oh, really? So as you can see, Suni got involved in digital imaging back in 1986. Paul Suni, who was the founder of our company, was involved in building the CCD sensor for the Serac machine. We were involved with building the CCD chips for the Trophy system, which is now Kodak or PracticeWorks or Carestream, your choice. The CCD technology on the Siemens X-rays. David Schick and Paul Suni worked together on the Schick X-ray. We did we did OEM stuff for a number of different companies. The first one being New Image. New Image was the Accucam company. They wanted to come out with a sensor. They did. We had the first one. They then eventually moved over to what ended up becoming the DEXA sensor. The FPDX was something that was done for media dens. We had the first true Dentrix image sensor, so it's always entertaining to me when the competition says that the Suni sensor is horrible when it's Dentrix, and I can pull out the box that says Dentrix Imagery on it. In 2002 to 2004, we decided to go direct. We were an OEM manufacturer. We did sensors for Lightyear, which was one of the fastest moving digital X-ray systems on the market at that time. We did them for Campsite, which was another one, Sigma Biomedical. A lot of the companies that you're going to come across now that are using Awandi, Himatsu, E2V sensors were all at one point or another using Suni. When we went direct, our OEM vendors didn't care for that. We did a wonderful job of marketing and branding the Suni product to the point where, with Lightyear, we actually put them out of business. Probably, in hindsight, wasn't one of the smartest things to do because we had two streams of revenue, but hey, it happens. In 2008, we came out with the Suni Ray sensor. In the past, we had a CCD sensor. It was a very high resolution, 3 million megapixel sensor with 21 to 22 line pairs. It was wonderful. CCD was the thing to do at that time. Somewhere around 1999, the other companies started going towards CMOS. Schick was one of the first ones that did it. Trophy did it with a product called Super CMOS, which was a mix between CCD and CMOS. We also went that route. But the advantage that we did is we did not take away our CCD sensors. What happened with our competitors is when they came out with CMOS, they made everybody upgrade to a new sensor and everything they had became obsolete. We made a commitment when we decided to be direct that we would always be backward compliant with our products, which is kind of nice. So there are people out there, I have some doctors that I run into that have had the original Suni sensors, metal ones, since 2002 and they're still using them. Something that's really important to know about Suni, there are two companies that sell digital X-ray that manufacture their own sensors. It's us and it's Schick. Everybody else has somebody else manufacturing them for it. Dexis is made by Fairchild Lockheed. The Kodak sensor is still made by Trophy. E2V is branded by everybody. Hamamatsu is branded by a lot of other companies. Also, everything that we manufacture in the USA. It's all done at Suni headquarters in San Jose. From San Jose, we take care of our service. We build sensors. It's really kind of cool. You go back there and there's all these little people, white coats, that are putting together the little chips. It's really kind of interesting to see. We are not a company that builds our own software. We're a sensor company. We're not a software company. The software we use is Professor Suni software, and basically what it is Aptrix. So if you've ever used Aptrix software with Cliniview, with, there's about 50 different names for the software. It's all the same thing. The beauty part about it, and we'll get to that in a minute, just touching on it, is that anything that's on the market will run on this software, which is very cool. Scoot over. Sorry, I'm out of camera range.
Holly, are we going to do questions at the end?
We can do questions whenever you want. I'm really easy. If there's something that comes up now, feel free.
90% of the people in this room have never seen or dealt with digital X-ray.
Okay.
So treat it like that.
That's good to know.
Yeah, we have varying levels of
We'll go through
experience.
that. We can talk a little bit about what digital X-ray does. And basically, all it is, no matter what anyone tells you, it's black film that doesn't bend. It does the same thing as film. You still use an X-ray head. The only thing is that it's reusable. You're using it over and over and over. The biggest advantage of digital X-ray is the radiation reduction, which is somewhere around 50%. They say 90, but that's based on really slow, older film. It's probably about 50%.
That's based on a D-speed film.
I'm sorry?
That's based on a D-speed film.
That's based on old D-speed film, yeah. It'll go down 90% there. I don't even know that you can buy film that slow anymore. It's usually ultra nectar speed. So now it's about 50%. FYI, phosphor plate systems, Denoptics, and Scanex are the exact same amount of radiation as you use for film. There's no radiation reduction at all. No worries. Sensors come in a variety of different sizes. Ours come with our Dr. Suni Plus, and you'll get to see the difference between them in 3 sizes: a size 0, a size 1 to 2, which is basically what film comes in. The Suni Ray comes in a size 1 and a size 2. Additional advantages with digital X-ray is that you're viewing an image that's this big, and so you're sitting in the corner before. I wish you still had that little film with you, because it just doesn't make sense. I can't even see film anymore. There's enhancement tools. There's things that you just may not be able to see. Gordon Christensen and CRA has done a number of reports on digital X-ray, and the conclusions on all of it is that there is not a sensor on the market that is not diagnostic, and that with the enhancements that are available within the software, it's as good as film. That was this year. That's the first time he's ever said that it's as good as film. Going through this, we take care of our own design and development. Everything is done. We manufacture our own product. We do not manufacture our intraoral camera. It's made for us by Sopro. It is actually the top-rated camera. Yeah, Acteon Sopro. It's the top. That's such a shame, Lauren. It's actually the top-rated camera in the market. The imaging software that we chose, again, was Aptrix. Our sensors last. They do. I run into people all the time that have had them forever. We distribute worldwide, and as far as the best warranty in the industry. To give you an idea of when I mentioned before with Lightyear had sold our sensors as an OEM product with a 5-year warranty. They went out of business after 3 years. We honored every single one of their warranties, and they never paid us for the warranties. When Suni decided to go direct, there were a number of people that were involved. I was one of them. They were all digital X-ray people, and we sat down in the room and said, if we're going to do this, what do we want? What do our customers want more than anything else? The biggest complaint in digital imaging, and you don't need to know anything about sensors to know this, but the biggest complaint is that you spend $10,000 to $15,000 for a digital X-ray system, and then you spend anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 a year to own it. Dexys is $18, Schick is $1,000, Trophy is $25 a month per sensor, $49 per month for the software. So the ranges are huge. I have an endodontist I work with in Washington, D.C., pays $20,000 in warranties.
Must be an Eagle soft.
Oh no, it's Texas. He has a number of different practices, and they're $18.95 each.
Is that just,
The charges on you on your statement too.
Yeah.
They sneak the charges.
Oh, I know they do.
I mean, it's like unlocking your power bill.
It's funny that you say that because a lot of
It's a good
times.
sales aid, by the way, you know.
Oh yeah, a lot of times I'll run into that with Kodak, and someone will give me a quote and say that the numbers are the same, and I'm just like, read down to the bottom where it talks about.
Technology, there ain't no way those numbers can be the same.
No, what they do is say, oh well, it's only whatever, another $75. Yeah, that's a month for the entire time you own it. And since we build everything, the pricing is lower. We take care of the service, we take care of training. The warranty is wonderful. When we had customers that wanted to switch from CCD to the CMOS sensor, we upgraded every single one of them at half price with brand new warranties. Didn't charge them for new sensors, and they were able to keep what they had before and run it together. So the reason why we did this is the complaints that we were hearing from our customers with other imaging companies, and we wanted to do what was right for the doctors. As I said, all our older products are still in use. We are completely backward compliant. So if you come across a potential customer that has an older Suni system, I will tell you that in South Florida there are a ton of Lightyear customers that are there for the picking. I do know that for a fact. Lightyear and DMD customers were rampant out here. What they have still works. If they want to add it, they can, and keep using what they're using. The software will still work, everything will still plug in, everything works exactly the same. We're the only company that can make that claim. This is our original USB box. It's a little bit smaller. We have the thinnest sensor on the market with our CCD sensor. There are some huge advantages to having a thin sensor. As far as the consumer is concerned, the end user is concerned, from a hygienist point of view, it doesn't make a difference whether it's thick or thin. It was a great marketing tool. It was the thinnest sensor on the market. It was fast, it was easy, and it was relatively economical. Our sensors are still the smallest on the market with the CCD. However, we sell probably 30% of the CCD sensors, all because of the box. People don't want to use the box anymore. They want it direct, exactly.
So you're saying the box was the collection measure?
Yeah,
Then you'd have
it
to
was actually the
transfer it
capture board, a giant capture board that was there, and we've actually shrunk that down. You'll see that in a minute. And this is the older Lightyear sensors. You will come across them. They are all over the country. That company did everything via telemarketing. They sold one sensor and a tablet computer for $5,000. These are OEM sensors. The one you're looking at now is actually the original Dentix image sensor, which has since gone away and has become a DEXA sensor. We have an intraoral camera. This was our first one. Light, cheap, easy, great little camera. Unfortunately, it held up fairly well, but dentists don't think that anything less than 30 years is holding up well. So, getting 10 years out of the camera is never long enough. Current sensors, here we go. Dr. Suni Plus, you'll see that we still have a capture board. It plugs from the capture board into a USB on the computer. It has a medical grade connector. Still the thinnest sensor on the market. This sensor comes in a size 0, a size 1, and a size 2. Advantages. From a sales standpoint, it's a megapixel sensor. It's got high line pairs. It takes a good image. Biggest disadvantage is it takes about 12 seconds to come up on the screen. This product sells wonderfully overseas. In the US, we take full mouth series of x-rays. We want something a little more instant. 18 seconds, 15 to 18 seconds may not seem like forever. until you have a sensor sitting in your mouth. So that's why less of our business right now is Dr. Suni Plus. There's 3 sensor sizes. Check your mouse, okay.
Are you the only company that makes a zero
Schick
hard
makes
sensor?
one also.
That make a zero?
Schick makes one also. We did not move it over to the Suni Ray
Okay.
just because so few of them are sold. The way our systems have been sold in the past is normally a 2 or 3 sensor system. When I sell a doctor sensor system and it's a 3 sensor system, I usually do 2 2s and a 1. I tell them right up front they're going to use the size 1 about 3% of the time.
The kids.
Yeah. Kids, geriatric patients, people that can't open their mouth that wide.
Toric.
Yeah, mandibular tori.
You're saying that's for one?
Yeah, for the size 1. They're going to use the size 2 the majority of the time, just like they do with film. The only people I sell zeros to are pedodontists, children's dentists, or Medicaid practices that see a bunch of those. Questions so far? Am I doing okay?
Those pictures of scale.
Yes. Let's see how wide we can get your mouth open. The back of the sensor is let's go back one. The back of the sensor is actually triple reinforced with Kevlar. We have found that the weak point of any sensor is at the connector. It's the wire. That's where they break. We just went through the holidays. If you think about Christmas tree lights that you put away last year, everything worked. You check it before you get it done. Next year you take them out of the box, you plug it in, you go to wrap it around the tree, and one blows out. It's because of the little copper wires that are in them. When everything's straight, they're all touching. If you move it a little bit, even if it's one of those little copper wires in there, you're not going to get a connection. That's what happens with sensors. It causes auto-firing, and what that means is it takes its own x-ray of nothing. It undershoots, doesn't shoot. And again, we found that was the problem. That's where the issue was, always at the connector. So what we did is we triple reinforced it with Kevlar. Our competition decided to make one make the sensor that has a removable cord. It's $900 to get the additional cord. We decided it was better for our customers just to fix the problem. So, the onboard status tells you what happens when it's green. Means the power's on. When it's red, press the button. 10 to 15 seconds with that sensor, you have an image on the screen.
Is that about average time, 10, 15 seconds?
It's not for CCD. CCD is just really much slower, and it was acceptable in 96 to 2000 before the CMOS came out, because it was the only thing that was out there.
So we're still on CCD?
We're still all CCD.
Oh, okay.
Haven't even moved on to CMOS yet. The problem with it is when the CMOS and the faster images came out, this was no longer acceptable. This product is a little bit less expensive. It tends to sell. I had one doctor say this to me, and I'll never forget it. He has practices in LA and Philadelphia, and also for some reason Bulgaria. I don't know. And he told me flat out, he also has two, an Aston Martin and on one side of the coast and Bentley on the other, and his license plate is Dr. Dream. Okay. In the U.S., he'll only use the Suni Ray. He told me flat out that he doesn't care what happens in Bulgaria. Nobody's looking for anything there anyhow. So that'll give you an idea what happens there. People that are looking at the Dr. Suni Plus sensor tend to be a little more cost concerned than they are with other sensors. You have someone that, and it actually even costs a little bit less than the EVO.
Really?
So, by the time the warranty and everything comes into effect, it's pretty substantial. The area of the size 2 sensor is the same size as that film you were looking at before. So, when you walk into a dental office and you have a 50-something-year-old hygienist who is fighting tooth and nail against the doctor about buying this because she wants them to buy a ScanX machine, so it's just like film and she can bend it, and this is so much bigger than film. I walk around with a size 2 film in my bag whenever I'm doing a demo in a doctor's office and lay it right on top of it. It ends the whole conversation. Then, of course, it's too thick, but that's a whole other story. And then they'll talk about, well, you can bend film. I said, well, yes. And when we were in hygiene school, if we bend film, we would have failed.
Yeah, if they seen a crease mark on a paperback film,
Exactly.
it jams the processor and it keeps it from mounting right. You read it as an artifact.
Absolutely, it does that, and also it was never meant to be bent open and pop open
No,
in
it
the
wasn't.
patient's
That's
mouth.
when you got the plastic packs, it made it a lot easier because it didn't cut the gingerbread as much. But
If sensors or film, whichever it is, are placed properly,
yeah, it's all.
It doesn't
it's
happen.
all in
It doesn't hurt.
Did you have to learn freehanded? and stuff?
initially, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I had to
Initially,
learn.
I do.
Well,
I personally use snap arrays on the mandibular. The only place I use XVP instruments are on the upper molars. I was always much better at bisecting than I was
Yeah,
at paralleling.
bisecting. Remember, I had the big long cones.
Yeah.
for the bisecting technique.
Sensors, 4.2 millimeters thick. It's the thinnest sensor on the market. Keep in mind that is the Dr. Suni Plus, the CCD sensor. The Suni Ray is about 6 millimeters.
And the Dexus is,
Dexus is about 47. It's about 15 millimeters. They talk about, you'll hear a lot of talk about Dexus and the comfort, and it is wonderful because exactly what you were saying with the corners and bending film to make it more comfortable
it's
for the
also
patient.
1.5.
Yeah, they cut off the ends, which is the first thing. There's a couple of things I'll tell you about that sensor. They cut off all the corners, so they sort of have like an octagon-shaped sensor, but a little bit longer. It is very, very, very thick. It's more comfortable as far as digging is concerned, for want of another description, but if you have a gagger, it's a nightmare. We don't use a fiber optic plate in the Dr. Suni Plus sensor. There's no need for it because of the megapixel in there. It also does not make it as fragile as the fiber optic plates are. That's not to say if you continue to hit these things on the floor that they're going to work. They're not. But if it happens, which it will happen, from occasion, it'll still work. You were asking before about line pairs. They used to come in a bunch of different resolutions. We don't make the standard resolution on anything but the size 0 anymore. There's really no reason for a high resolution sensor on kids. They're not going to have anything that's that difficult to see. So that is a 22 line pair machine. Human eye does 15, film does 14. So it's all somewhat irrelevant. There are buzzwords in the industry. Line pairs is definitely one of them.
Grayscale.
Yeah, grayscale. And at this point, they're all 4096 grayscale. A lot of it talks about line pairs. I normally, because I am a Jersey girl, normally if a doctor says to me, how many line pairs is it, would you be able to tell? Can you see everything you need to see? And then I'll tell them, tell me what you see on this x-ray. But it is a buzzword. None of them have any idea what it really means. It's just another way for them to bring up a point. Questions so far? Are we okay? Oh, and the film at 14 line pairs is presuming that it was shot at the right exposure, that it was processed properly, that the chemicals were at the exact correct temperature. Otherwise, it goes down even lower.
But you said the human eye can only read
15 to 16, exactly. But we need to be 20. But it became this issue about line pairs per millimeter.
But when you blow it up on a screen.
When you blow it up, if you blow it up on a screen, it depends upon the sensor. It has less to do with the sensor and more to do with the software. Chip, for example, has a 21 millimeter line pair as well. 22 line pairs per millimeter, I'm sorry. If you zoom in on it, because their zooming software is awful, it pixelates like crazy. It has nothing to do with the sensor itself, it just has to do with the software. If you zoom in on it, your eye will probably be able to maybe bump it up to 17. You'll notice the way this is done. The sensors are built on the bottom. They're all taped in. It's not straight. See how they're folded over? That goes more towards the reinforcement we were talking about before. So in order to pull that sensor off the wire, there's a lot more going on there. Again, we understood there was a problem with the connectors. We did everything we could to change it. Sometimes I wish we would have done the check then. Be nice to sell a $900 wire, wouldn't it?
Didn't want anyone to know.
You can see that it absorbs, as we were talking about, it absorbs the strain. Everything is there. It's meant to hold together.
That's just shooting the back of the sensor.
Yeah, we just flipped it over. That's all it is. Thank you for noticing that. Okay, now we're moving on to Suni Ray, CCD. You'll notice we still have CMOS, I'm sorry. You'll notice we still have a capture box. It's just smaller. It's basically the size of a ladyfinger cookie. It connects. I'm going to talk food. It connects via USB into the computer. The reason why it's not all one piece is because if, God forbid, the thing goes flying. If you've ever been in an office where they're taking digital x-ray, it's always fun to see someone trip over the sensor. It happens all the time. This is meant to disconnect at the $35 cord. It'll come right off, no damage to the sensor. So it was made that way for a reason. Again, we're back to the whole red-green. Green is ready. Red is shooting. That sensor is 6 millimeters thick. It comes in a size 2 and a size 1. No size 0 in Suni Ray.
How long is the cord from the sensor to
It can,
the
from the sensor to the
box?
USB is 12 feet, and then you can go up to another 15 after that. They also can be done in 8 feet. And there it is. You can see the little cable here. Again, $35 ferrite USB cable. I don't care if those things break all day long. I don't want anything happening to the $7,000 sensor. So the corners are rounded. That was always the problem. We had the thinnest sensor on the market. It was metal. It's really thin. It dug like crazy. So we rounded the ends. We reinforced the cable. We made the casing harder. We're using CMOS. Where it says CMOS is superior images, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Basically what happens with the CMOS sensor is you get a much higher contrast image. So you and I, who use D-speed film, are used to seeing real blacks and real whites. And seeing incipient, which is decay that's not quite into the enamel, or into the enamel but not into the dentin, has always been difficult to see with CCD sensors.
Yeah, because of the white to white.
Right.
That was one of the early complaints doctors had against going.
Absolutely.
They couldn't read the contrast.
Right, so they had to mess with the contrast, they had to invert it, there were all sorts of tools that had to be done. That is why the CCD sensors go to Bulgaria and the CMOS sensors stay here. There's a one-touch enhancement, which was really nice with some of the other products. Kodak had a one-button enhancement, and it depended upon what you were looking at. If you were looking at an endo image, you had one button you pressed. If you were looking at a perio or a bone problem, clicked on the perio one. If you were looking for decay, there was a DJ button. That was one of the things that was lacking in our software. We recently had that added, and it makes all the difference in the world. The enhancement takes care of the contrast as well as the sharpness, and it really makes things jump out, and I'm so hoping I can get that running so I can show you what it does. The emergency cable disconnect, that's what I was talking about, that $40 cable. I don't care what happens to it. In the past, with the CCD sensors, when you plugged them into the computer, you had to run a separate file so that it knew which sensor it was. Each sensor had its own unique number, CCD file. It doesn't have to do that anymore. It now reads it automatically with the CMOS sensors. And the feedback monitoring indicator lights just means it's red when it's on, green when it's on, red when it's shooting. Although the images, there's much more contrast, you'll see, on the Suni Ray, as opposed to a high resolution CCD. The CCD sensor go on and click on products.
The free trial.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that also, but it lists all the devices that it runs. The only sensor it doesn't run is DEXIS. DEXIS has no desire to run their sensor in anything else. There was a software years ago, a MediaDent software. It's now called something else. It's by a Belgian company, Catapult, which was the only people that broke the code to capture that image in there. You got to see what it looks like when it's in somebody else's software.
Good or bad? Terrible.
Terrible.
But they put a ton of filters on here.
And there's all filters on it. There's also, this is kind of interesting, there's also a note that comes up on all new DEXIS installations, a disclaimer saying that they're not responsible if their product isn't diagnostic. I have a screenshot of that I'd be happy to share. That gets shut down immediately. Imaging. This is the cool part about it. The software is fully customizable. Whatever you want it to do, whatever tools your doctor likes best, we can set it up. When I do trainings, and I do a lot of them, I set everybody up exactly the same. The reason why I do that is because I travel a lot, and if somebody calls, I want to say, okay, it's the fourth button to the left. When I do trainings, I require all of my doctors to leave everything the way it is for at least a month. If they find that they're going up into toolbars and looking for other tools and using them frequently, I'll add it. What I put on top, I tell them is basically Boardwalk and Park Place. This is the most expensive real estate on your desktop. We want the stuff you're going to use there. The image enhancement, as I said before, we were missing that tool. We were missing Clearview that DEXIS had. We were missing the filters that Trophy or Kodak had. We now have it. It's a one-click. It sharpens and increases the contrast, so you actually have an image that the DEJ stands out really well. What we're looking at here, and DEJ is dental enamel junction, is you really can't see anything different here to here. But when the enhancement tool is on, see how you see that looks a little bit different? It's a different color, it's whiter. Sorry, running into stuff. Hard to see with. Can you turn that light off over by you for a second? I know you had to take your clock off and move.
Well, the light turns off the other side.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just so that you can see it a little more clearly. It's kind of hard with that would be on. There we go. See how the edges around those teeth stand out more? There was a tool in DEXIS software that was called Clearview. And what that did is it just really increased and enhanced everything so that you could see it. We basically did the same thing. What's nice about it is it's adjustable. So if you want to even enhance it even more with one click, you can just move it up to high. The images are clear, they're good, they're diagnostic with the CMOS sensor, they're up on the screen in less than 3 seconds each. The one thing that I want you to take away from this picture more than anything else, as you can see, these are not canned images. These were images that were taken in an office that a hygienist did on her first shot. Which is why, we're missing a little bit of the apex. We don't use canned images for demos. We have 3 of them. Every image that we use for demos are images that are taken in an office. Love to say, I can get this image every single time if the sun, the moon, the stars are lined up properly. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Every x-ray head is different. Walked into an office the other day that had Noel Belmont head, and not only could they not dial it down low enough, when you went to dial it down, the dial fell off in your hand. And then they said to me, well, the solution will be is we'll just hold the x-ray head out here, because they really didn't want to find the x-ray. So again, you have the 3 settings. You have greater contrast on low, but less detail. Medium is where I normally set it. I don't like noisy images, so I rarely put it on high. We also have now put in the software a button that it can capture like that. And you can customize everything. It's wonderful. It's one of the few softwares that can. There's a lot of advantages to that it's fully customizable to the doctor's preferences. It does also come with its share of issues. We were talking about DEXIS before. What's nice about DEXIS software is it's always the same. It's always the same. This is all based on what the doctor's preferences are. The auto sensor ID, that means that you plug it in, it knows the sensor that you're using. When you plug a sensor in, it will speak to you. There's 3 different voices. There's one that's sort of like a cartoon. There's a male voice and there's a female voice. And it says, sensor ready.
That's still do that.
Yeah. Says it with,
Is it a cute female voice?
it's not bad. It's sort of an Asian accent on it, which is really funny because the company that writes the software is in Ohio. So I guess they just downloaded some WAV file from somewhere and that was that. You have your red and green indicator lights. Green means that the sensor's plugged in. Red means that you capture it. Faster image capture has become a huge issue. You need to be able to keep that sensor in the mouth and just move it around when you're taking a full mouth series. If you take it out, you have to change things around. It sort of defeats part of the purpose. The image capture on the Suni Ray is 2 to 5 seconds, depending upon the speed of the computer. 9 times out of 10, by the time they walk back in the room, the image is on the screen. Sensor ready mode, what that means is the amount of time you have before it times out. The staff member has 10 minutes from the time they tell the sensor to capture to walk outside and press the button. And then, of course, there's the stop and grab.
And then after that 10 minutes, you just have to reset.
Then it says sensor failure, and you have to click capture again. Open architecture. That's huge. The software will run every device on the market. So, your Awanji customers, your EVA customers, if they are looking for another sensor, can absolutely do a Suni Ray sensor and still run what they have. You'll notice the only one that's not up there is DEXIS.
They are up there.
Oh, that's not supposed to be there. That needs to be removed. Thank you.
So you're saying that any of those sensors will run with your...
We'll run with the software.
But it's in reverse you would want to do it. Because normally you're going in and you're trying to sell a sensor, and they have imaging software that they use.
Yes, but the thing is that the advantage is that the imaging software that they're using, they're probably paying support fees for. Most are. If they're using, they can take their stuff, put it out, we actually can convert their images and put them in there, and they get rid of the support fees. There's no support fees for software, there's no software upgrade fees. As long as you own the system, you own it. You don't have to pay to rent it every year.
You buy the software up front?
It comes in the package.
It comes with the sensor.
Yeah. There's a couple of different packages. There's one that's one sensor and software. The software works the same way Microsoft does in that there's licensing. A system consists of one sensor and the software, maybe 2 sensors in the software, price included. There needs to be a license sold for every computer in the office where they're going to be viewing the x-rays. Makes the doctors crazy. The cost, the retail cost on the software licenses is about $250. So, if you have a 1 sensor package and it's whatever, for argument's sake, let's say it's $7,000, and they have 10 additional computers that they're viewing on, including printing out, sending stuff to the insurance, they're looking at another $2,500 on top of that. When the argument comes up that I can buy multi-user software from whomever, Kodak, Schick, Trophy, Kodak, Schick, Carestream, where the argument is there is that yes, but you're not paying any support fees. It's a one-time licensing fee, just like when You bought your computer and you have a Microsoft license, you can't take that same license and put it in another computer. You used to be able to, but you can't anymore. And by owning that license, you're also entitled to the support, just like Microsoft.
So you have to count the number of workstations plus the server.
Yeah. Well, no, the server, you don't need to have it on the server. It can just sit on the server and then go elsewhere. It doesn't need a license for the server.
Okay, so just the workstations. Anywhere you're going to plug in the sensor?
Any place you're going to look at the image.
Okay.
Because obviously you're not going to plug in your sensors at the front desk, but they are going to need access to the images. Same
Right.
thing with the private office. I usually walk around and count the computers. I don't ask the question how many rooms they're going to be viewing x-rays on, because they will always tell you less than the number of computers that they have.
Just count the number of
Count the computers. This is it.
Do you just include that in the total price, or do you separate line item?
Well, it is a separate line item, but I do tell them what's going on with it. I don't like,
So why not just build it into the price?
because it's going to vary from office to office. If you have four computers, you're going to be less than the guy with 10. So there's no way to do it. I do it as a separate line item. If I come to you and say, if they call and find out, someone calls Suni and they say, okay, I'm looking for a one sensor system. What does it cost? And we say $7,500.
Can I price them out at 10,000?
Right. So that's why we bring it up. We don't hide stuff. As far as the conversions, we can change any of these imaging databases and put them into Suni images.
Including Nexus?
Dexys, we just can't capture their sensor. So if you do have someone that has another software, easily done. The software will also link to any practice management software. And what that means is if they have EagleSoft, if they have Dentrix, if they have PracticeWorks, if they have SoftDent, if they have Easy Dental, no matter what they have, it'll link to it. Now the competition makes a huge deal about integration. Dentrix is really big on this, about their tight integration with their DEXA sensor. Next time you're in an office where they have Dentrix, ask the front desk person just to let you look at the computer screen, and you will see that they have 3 to 4 tabs on the bottom. Because every single one of their programs is layered. So they have one for the chart, one for the patient ledger, one for the appointment book, one for the patient information screen. So every time they open that program, they have all these windows running. They are linked together. It's not completely integrated. So, and most people understand that because we've all had multiple windows open on the bottom of our computer and see what happens.
So
that
you're using a
makes it
grabber to link them?
Pardon, we use Name Grabber or Data Grabber. It's the same thing. And Data Grabber will grab all the patient demographic information from start to finish. It'll carry everything over. They're not going to have to open anything. The other advantage, as far as having a separate imaging program, this is what I tell the doctors, because they've all heard how important it is for everything to be tied in. You know what, Doc? I own my own business just like you do. I have all of my accounting stuff in QuickBooks. I don't put my pictures in there. I just don't. And from a practice management standpoint, most practices will change practice management 2 to 3 times over the course of the practice. Getting those images when they're embedded into a practice management program is a nightmare. Each single DEXIS image to get out of the program requires 17 clicks. They buried it so deep because they never want anyone not using their software. Good thing is that Actrix figured it out and they can go with 1 click for all of them. What cams are you guys selling?
The 1D cam, which is just a generic camera, and like third party, we sell the Axion Sopro, which is private owned, but not the. We sell the cheaper one, not the one that's 5,800.
You sell the one that's about $3,000.
Yeah, there's a Sopro
That's what we sell.
Okay.
So it's the same one. You do not have to
This is the
carry
one
it.
with the swipe on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to carry it. If you're carrying something else, not a problem. I don't know. If I were you, I would go with whatever the margins are better on.
Yep.
So, intraoral camera, it's actually kind of nice. It has a swipe button, and this will help with the camera you already have. One of the biggest disadvantages, they've moved from a foot pedal to push buttons probably about 10 years ago. Push buttons became a much bigger deal. In the past, it was all foot pedals. And what would happen is when the staff member or the doctor would press the button, it would move. So what Acteon did with this camera is they made it just a swipe. It's heat sensitive. As soon as you touch it, it captures, which is really nice.
Well, they started putting the button from the backside too.
Yeah,
Like a
and they
trigger.
used to be, they were all over the place. I actually,
It's on the side, back.
and the foot pedal was total pain. I had an old AccuCam that I had to have somebody else hit the foot pedal for. With this camera, you can get a full smile. You can get a decent face. They say it doesn't fisheye, it does. And it has a built-in autofocus. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so it's lighter than our old camera. It has an aspheric lens. It feels really nice in your hand. It's light. It's easy to work with. Some of the older cameras were metal and they weighed a ton. And there's LEDs so the light lasts longer.
They don't, most of the people in don't understand what the intraoral camera is for.
Oh, okay.
Just telling them.
So, we all have heard the expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? In 1986, the first intraoral cameras came out. It was made by Fuji. It was on a card about this big. And the wand was about this big. You put it in the patient's mouth, and they could see where their fillings were leaking, if a tooth was cracked, and the doctor was then able to show it to the patient up on the screen. Probably you've had this done at some point or another. It became a way, and they'll all deny it, but it became a way to sell dentistry. You could now see what it was. In the past, you couldn't. You had x-rays. They didn't mean anything. It was much easier to ignore your issues. Seeing a, at the time, 13-inch full-color picture of the crack in your tooth might get you up off your butt and do that crown that they wanted to do. So that's where cameras came in. They were heavy, they were expensive. The first intraoral camera was the Fuji cam. As I said, it cost $45,000 in 1986. There are cameras on the market that you can buy now. There's a guy up in Ormond Beach who sells cameras that cost you $100 to $7,000.
Isn't he the digital, what's his name? Digital Claude.
Yes.
I see him at the show.
Yes. And it's the funniest thing. If you're ever at a trade show and you see his booth, you would not believe the range of cameras.
You wouldn't really believe the women that he hires.
Oh, I know. Is that something, his booth babes?
He puts iPads on their back.
I know.
Oh, it's that guy?
Yeah.
That's that guy. That's Claude.
Yeah.
And Claude's
We know
done
that guy.
everything.
Claude has done, Claude has done everything. And he's really good. He's great with cameras. I mean, he finds great cameras. If I have a doctor that tells me that they have a hygienist that's already broken 4 cameras, I'll send them over to Claude and tell them that they need to sell them the one that's $195. So that's the range of what's on the market. Our camera sells for $34.95. It's also, and you can use this for yourself since you're using that camera as well, private labeled. It also ranked second highest in the CRA report. And it still amazes me that people come up to me at a trade show with the CRA report and said, I want to see your camera. I think they all pretty much show the same thing, but whatever. The angle on this, it's all done with a fulcrum. So it has to do with how you're moving your hands up and down. You're always going to be laying the camera against the opposing tooth. Okay? So if you want to get a lower molar, the head of that camera is going to be on the upper molar. It's tiny, the head on that, which is kind of nice too. These spheric lenses are also safer than what they were before. They're less expensive to replace. And resolution-wise, it absolutely gives you the same thing over and over and over. The quality is always the same.
Let me ask you a question. Will Acteon still support this if you tell them that it's a Suni camera?
We support it.
Okay.
It's supported to us, yeah.
Okay.
They say there's no fisheye. There is some. It's not as bad as this, but there is a little bit of fisheye on it. You can use it for a portrait. I normally don't in this day and age where digital cameras are as inexpensive as they are. Anything extraoral, I recommend using a digital camera. Same thing with the smiles. Intraorals with the intraoral camera. And again, it's automatic, it autofocuses. It's very bright. And LEDs last longer. There's that little button I was telling you about. You'll notice it has a little lip on it. It's just a quick touch. No press, no nothing, so you never have to worry about doing this. That being said,
They're the only ones, right?
yeah, they're the only ones that have that.
Kodak doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that being said, interestingly enough, when you first get someone one of these cameras, they're losing their mind because every time they push the button, they're capturing. So it does have a little bit of a mind once they do it.
And then we'll work with two of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The connector on the bottom will allow you to turn the camera however you want. The system comes with a camera, another cord, and another USB box. It's an easy, quick disconnect. The cost of that wire is another $800 because it's not just a wire. So keep that in mind. If you have a doctor that's going to be taking this from room to room, always a good idea to ask where they're using it and selling them another cord. They'll go for that before they go for another camera. Comes with a 1-year warranty. There's the docking station that we were talking about.
The things identical to the text.
They all are, yeah, they're all private labels.
I mean,
Here's-
everything's on it.
Yeah.
So,
Here's the quick disconnect down here. I lost my mouse.
With the 1-year warranty, that obviously just covers manufacturer's defects, right?
We pretty much cover everything.
I mean,
Even if they drop
aside
it?
from the
If
customer
they drop it, yeah, if they drop it, we actually cover it. If it looks like it's been beaten, then we won't.
Okay.
You know, we have absolutely been customer first. I've seen them replace sensors that had teeth marks in them.
So what do you tell the customer when you're trying to sell
Tell them that there's a 1-year warranty on it.
Okay.
I tell them that it normally covers normal wear and tear. If you put it in the autoplay, I'm not fixing it.
No customer abuse system.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's again, real world here, it's gonna hit the floor. Everything hits the floor. When I do training, I tell everybody, you know, I know it never happens in your office, but I've been the one that's picked up a handpiece, dropped it on the floor, looked around, stepped on the rheostat, and hoped it turned. And if it did, all was good. I also knew that if I continued doing that, eventually it would stop spinning. It's gonna happen, but they're meant to take day-to-day use. They're not meant to take abuse. It's the same thing with the sensors. Specification, no different than the one that you're using now. The higher end, right? And I'm still not buying that from 150 portrait. That's it for right now, and I'll give you guys a 5-minute break, and I'll bring up, or a 10-minute break, whatever you want, and I'll bring up some more sensor stuff. I'll bring you up the software PowerPoint. Hopefully, able to get online so I can do the software. So you can see what it is. I know you've been sitting in here all day long, and you probably need some air, so go for it.